Welcome to how to make this wire fun cha-cha bracelet. It's a wire bangle that we're going to be using some thicker wire for. If you need any wire or any materials because you're not at the bead retreat, go ahead and look below the video. In the description, we'll put links there to get all of your supplies or your kit online. Gather everything up and let's get ready to get started. To begin our candy wire cha-cha, we are starting out with some 18 gauge wire. You can certainly do this with 16, but it may limit you options as far as which beads will fit over the 16. We are going to take approximately 2 feet of wire. If you have a really big wrist, you may need a little bit more, but 2 feet should do it for you. And what we're going to do is bend it so we have a foot to one side, or 10 inches or so to one side rather, and then you have all the rest to the other side. So when you're holding it up here, you can see that I have a shorter side and a longer side on the project. What I'm going to do first is make a loop for my clasp to sit into. So you can use a pen. I have a mandrel sitting here, so I'm going to use the mandrel, and I'm simply going to bend the wire in half right along the mandrel here and get a loop. You can do this with a bigger, you can do it, like I said, with a pen, kind of up to you. And then what we're gonna do is grab our 24 gauge wire. So we're working with 18 and 24. The reason that I really love 24 gauge copper, it's really simple and flexible and easy to work with. And additionally, it is inexpensive and it gets a great patina on it and a great kind of tarnish look to it. I have here approximately 3 feet of wire. If you've never worked with wire before, listen up. Start with a smaller piece of wire, say about 12 inches of wire. If you've worked with wire before and you're used and okay to getting all tangled up, certainly start if you want with this thicker piece. I'm going to take approximately 2 inches of wire and cross the last 2 inches of wire over that loop that I've created. From here, take the 2 ends of your wire and bind them together with that 2-inch piece of wire wrapping toward the loop. The additional wire now is right here off to the end. So you've got a long piece of wire that's hanging out there. After you have that little section, you can tuck in the whole thing, but please, please, please do not poke your finger. So what you're going to do is turn it towards the back, grab your wire cutters, cut off the extra wire, take your needle nose pliers right up to the end there and just kind of pinch that wire together if you need to, and then pinch it down towards the surface. You can then progress and pinch the whole way down, kind of holding that together as we work on it. If you want to also, and you didn't have a pen, you can also use your round nose pliers to kind of help you to round out that edge. From here, we are going to separate out the wires. The shorter wire is going to get the bigger beads as well as the head pins of the little bangle jangles. And the bigger end is what's going to, the longer piece of 18 gauge is what's going to cause that coiling motion. So now that I have this ready, I'm actually going to set this aside and grab my copper head pins. You can make this design however you want, whatever length, whatever bead order you want to. I'm going to stick to some smaller beads towards the top or bottom, bigger beads at the bottom, and stack them too high. So you're going to sit your start of your bracelet off to the side, grab out your head pins, get your round nose, needle nose, and wire cutters out. And we are going to get to coiling. Now once again, if you've never done any wire working before, this may bother your hands a little bit to do every single step right in a row. You can start this and stop this and start this and stop this. It's kind of up to you. Additionally, when it comes to the eye pins, you can start the eye pins and coil them or not coil them. I'm going to show you how I stack. So the example piece here, I have the darker towards the top. With this piece here, I'm going to put the darker towards the outside. I have my 3mm and my 4mm beads going onto the head pins. If you want to, you can stack all of these together right away, making all of your head pins. Each larger bead is going to feature 2 head pins on either side of it. So chances are you are going to need at least 36 of these. If you have one that's bent up a little bit, just take your needle nose pliers, kind of flatten it out, and continue on. Once you get all of your head pins in line and all of your beads on your head pins, or take a break if you want to, we're going to make some coiled eye pins. So to do the coiled eye pins, what we are going to do is take our pliers, and we are going to take our round nose pliers, leave a tiny bit of space right around that 4mm bead. I'm going to bring the camera in closer so you can see this wire technique. And you are going to hold with your round nose pliers towards the front. If I cut my round nose pliers in thirds, I'm holding it towards that front third, the very end of that. Hold your beads in your wire and turn your pliers to the side. When you turn your pliers to the side, this creates a little 90-degree angle in your wire, and you are in the center of those round nose pliers between the 2 jaws. I'm then going to bring the wire over the top of that round nose pliers till it hits the bead on the opposite side. Once it hits the bead on the opposite side, we're going to rotate our pliers. See how we were in between the 2 jaws? We're going to rotate so we're just a loop on the bottom jaw. The wire then goes towards the back of your pliers 90 degrees. So it started out as a 90-degree turn, and it ends as a 90-degree turn. If it's a little bit off of 90, you can simply hold your little eye pin there and bend the bottom of the wire. No one is looking for perfection on a cha-cha bracelet. After you're done with that, hold with your needle nose pliers and coil and wrap the end of the head pin. Again, does not need to be perfect. 2, 3 wraps, 1 wrap even going over a little bit, and cut off that little wire end from your project. I would suggest as you're doing this to do all the same step at one time. So right now I'm going to go in, make my round loops, and I know I make it look fast and quick, and sometimes I even cheat, and I'll hold with my round nose pliers. Not the best idea. You don't get the best grip. So if you've never done it before, don't bother to do so. Instead, what you're going to do is take your round nose pliers, get all your head pins, turn to the side, go over the top, switch from the top jaw to the bottom jaw, and let that sit. Do the same thing, repetitive motion, over and over again, creating all your little eye pins. If you have trouble coiling the eye pin, you can certainly go in right before the wire crosses over the start of the head pin and cut off the extra wire if you would rather just have an eye pin rather than a coiled eye pin. I'm going to continue to do 36 total of my head pins with a smaller bead on the bottom, bigger bead on the top. Once you've got your coiled eye pins done, we are going to begin by separating out the wires. So you're going to take your shorter wire. I like to keep that to the top. I'm holding it in my left hand side now. And I take the longer wire kind of towards the bottom. What we're going to do is we're going to start wrapping along the longer wire. And then we are going to add some beads. So I'm going to take my 24 gauge wire and I'm going to wrap around once, twice, 3 times around the longer wire. So see that coiling technique. From here, go ahead and pick one of your 2mm round beads here, that light tanzanite, and put it onto your wire. With your finger, and I'll get closer to this so you can see it, I am going to push that bead down right along the base of the wire, kind of lining it up. Take your new wire, that thinner one, and start wrapping once again over that longer piece. Try as much as possible not to kink the wire of the 24 gauge as you're working with it. Once you have 4 coils, kind of push them together. Grab another bead, and we're going to do this a total of 3 times. So you do 3 coils, bead, and repeat that 3 times, ending then with a coil. So here I am again, pushing the bead down, 1 coil, 2 coils, 3 coils along. Bring your wire towards the outside of that longer piece, kind of pushing those coils down. Third bead goes on, and then you repeat. Hold the bead there, 1 coil around, 2 coils around, 3 coils around, and the wire comes to the outer edge. Now you have 3 coils around your wire with 3 beads. On the interior wire, that shorter wire, pulling the camera back, what I want you to do is put on your first of your ovalish flat beads there, your lentil beads, and then you're going to put on 2 of your coiled head pins. Now the rest of the piece will be putting on 2 more of those coiled head pins prior to the bead, but this one, it makes it a little bit easier to take on and off if you don't have a ton of those coiled beads right next to your clasp section. So from here then, pushing those down, we're going to take our 24 gauge wire, just let it hang out there, and the 18 gauge that's longer is going to wrap around the 18 gauge that's shorter. Right here, those coils go basically up towards the top. Take your fingers and wrap the 18 gauge once along the piece. This is going to establish our pattern for our bracelet. From here, that 24 gauge wire is also going to go over top of the piece, and we're going to wrap it around the longer piece again. So from here, we're doing 1, 2, and 3, and 4 of our wraps, turning it to the side here, just like it was. Now that first coil is to the top, second one to the bottom. Add on your first of your 3 crystals to that 24 gauge wire. And certainly if you want to use some of the Lila Vega darker rounds, you can do that too. Go in, pinch that down, wrap and coil, 1, 2, 3. If they get separated out, push them together. Don't feel like, again, like you have to rush, get those coils nice. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. Put the beads on. Once again, pinch with your fingers, and then wrap around once, twice, and 3 times. Pushing that down towards the base. Once again, 3 more coils after putting on a bead. Hold that bead in place. Coil right after. 1, 2, 3, and bring that wire towards the outside. You now have your coiled wire section here. Go into the shorter piece, add 1 and 2 of your head pins. Add another 1 of your beads. Usually I like to change up the color. Add 2 more of your head pins, 1 and 2. Take that thicker wire, the 18 gauge, pushing those beads down towards the base. Take the thicker wire, wrap it once around, move that 24 out of the way, once around the piece till it's on the opposite side. Straighten out that wire, and now you can see the pattern. So you're going every other bead, or every bead you're going to the wire to the different side. So from here again, wire goes over the top, starts to wrap around your longer piece of your 18 gauge wire. Go ahead and continue with the design, adding in and switching to every other side as you get a nice back and forth herringbone look. So once you're done wrapping, you can see that fun kind of bangle effect that you have. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of those on there. And I got really excited and kept working, and by accident cut off this extra wire. So what you're gonna do is wrap the extra wire around the base here 1 time, just like you are doing as you're wrapping around. And then instead of continuing on to do our coiling, we're just cutting off that extra wire. You're left then with a piece of wire that's approximately about 4 inches, and then the other side here that needs a loop. So the other side here that needs a loop, this is up to you how you want to do this. There's 2 ways. One, I'm going to show you how to make a clasp out of this extra 16 gauge wire. And the other way is I'm going to show you how to make a clasp directly on the piece. So if you want to make a piece and a clasp that sits separately, you can do so with your extra wire that you've just cut off. We make a little loop on this side and we attach it to it and go into this loop. The other thing you can do is turn if it's getting a little bit big or a little size-wise, and you can just make a hook and eye to this and turn this one here. So to start out, I'm going to make a clasp and then I'm going to hook it to this end, and we'll kind of show both of those variations. I have my 24 gauge wire and I want to make my clasp match my design. So I'm going to grab out one more of my 2mm crystal. And the first thing I'm going to do is make a loop. Now I don't need this loop to be so big, it's just going to connect to a loop on this side. The loop end of the eye that I'm making is what I'm going to need to be larger. So from here, I'm just going to take my wire, and I have my wire at the very end of my round nose pliers, and I'm just rolling it to make a loop. See that little loop there? From here, I'm going to take my extra 24 gauge wire. I'm going to take it so it's intersecting the wire just like we've been doing. This is the same thing over and over. And I'm going to do my 3 wraps. After my 3 wraps, I'm going to add one of my crystals. Again, this is a little bit more decorated. You can do it. You don't have to do it. Completely up to you. I'm then going to take the wire around and once again coil 1, 2, 3 times. So really 4, 3 complete. Kind of push it together so that crystal sits to the outside. Go ahead and cut off those extra wire ends or loop them around, it's up to you. I'm going to push that down towards the loop side. That's just going to decorate it a little bit. And now you can use your mandrel, you can use a pen, you can use the end of your wire. It's up to you. I'm just going to take a pen here and I am going to curve around and make a nice hook there. You can cut off the extra hook here. To mimic, you can make an S hook, kind of up to you. Cut it about where it equals in length to that loop, and we are going to turn up the end. If you find that's really scratchy, you can take your pliers and turn back the end. Turn it into a half circle or with your round nose pliers, and then take your needle nose, chain nose pliers, and just kind of pinch down on that to make it a little loop. That's not going to then affect any of the skin as you're working on it. This is going to hook into here, and the other thing we need to do is make the loop on this side to hook into as well. You can make a fancy clasp, like I said. You can turn this to the side. All we're going to do is make this end here into a loop. We are going to bend down towards the project, in like you see, grab our round nose pliers, and loop around. If you want to attach it to your piece, you can just make a turned over loop there, which can go into your project, looping it around, turning it in half. Since we have our hook and eye here, I'm going to attach it to the loop end that I already have. Take my pliers here, hold, and wrap that loop around one more time. As I wrap that loop around one more time, I'm going to give it a trim. Those two ends pretty much meet up, but I'm going to flatten it out. Take my new little hook now, open it up, attach it onto that side, close it up, and finish up your hook and eye bangle. Once it's finished, this can be bent into whatever shape you want. I would also suggest if you have a hammering block, go ahead and hammer down from the middle of the loop out and hammer down from the start of that coiled wire outward. What that does is just increases the strength a little bit, but you can also wear it and increase as you're working with it. You can make those hooks bigger, smaller, however you want to as you're working with it and putting this on. Then you complete your fun wire cha-cha bracelet. Thanks so much for joining me in creating this fun wire wrapped bangle cha-cha bracelet. It uses a lot of different wire skills, and that's really what we're looking to learn, is all of those different wire skills in one place, and a really fun bracelet to go along with it. Remember, if you need any materials or want to get the kit, go ahead and look below the video in the description of the video. We'll put a link there to get back to our website. You can always hit that subscribe button too so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads. Thanks so much for joining Potomac Beaders, and stay tuned for more inspirational designs.